the water, learning about business start. Um, and then there was diving fully in. So I kind of had two starts, but I was working at a children's home. Me and my wife were working at a children's home uh, right out of college. And I had a week, we did a week on, week off. So I would have a week off every other week. So I had this time on my hands. And that's when me and my brothers started talking about a side hustle. So we actually we found this company that would clean restaurant hoods, like get them up to fire code. So all the grease that comes up off a restaurant system needs to be cleaned because it's flammable. So it's not just a cleanliness issue, it's a fire issue. So there was actually a franchise that was trying to grow through the area. So we looked at this franchise, we thought about trying to get into it. And as we looked at it, we were like, man, there's nothing that they offer that we can't do. And they have no name recognition in our town. And also I live in the mountains of North Carolina, and we got cold winters, and there was nobody in the high country doing this particular service. So that was like the big insight, was like, nobody's doing this, and it's required by law. So restaurants were having to call these companies from off the mountain to come up, and they'd have to overnight, and that would be built into the price. And so I knew that we had an opportunity because of that. So basically we bought a trailer. We went to the bank, tried to get a $15,000 loan. Me and my two brothers, we were going to do it together. And they told us no. So even with all three of us trying to get $5,000 each, like that was kind of where we were in business. And so then we went to a doctor and we said, hey, we got this idea. We think it'll work. Will you co-sign? Will you back us up on this? And he did. So we were able to get the loan. So we each were on the hook for $5,000 if this didn't work out. We bought a trailer and we got this hot water pressure washer, and we went to work. Now, I think what's really meaningful to realize is like, this is like a dirty job that nobody wanted to do. We would get on the restaurant hoods at night in the winter sometimes, and we would just do this hard work. There's actually been on dirty jobs, this particular thing. But because of that, all of a sudden I'm making way more per hour. We would go to a 3-4 hour job, and we were able to, bill them out for $300 to $1,000. And I was like, man, I'm making a lot. It was this light bulb went off. I'm like, wow, I'm making way more, and it's not coming W-2. There's other ways to make money. So that was kind of me getting into business, was noticing something in the market, starting as a side hustle. We had a trailer, and we went out. I started like beating the town, bringing my car to different restaurant owners. And actually pretty soon we had all the local market, like maybe like 95%, like all the local businesses went with us because we were the local guys doing it. They needed it done. They appreciated it. And so that was our start. That was our first start, I guess.
No, that's amazing. So one thing that I want to pull out of that and, maybe have you talk just a little bit about it. And I love this part of it is that it started as a side hustle, and like there are a lot of college students that attend our Startup Thursdays who have side hustles. You know what I mean? A lot of people who maybe work for the government, like entrepreneurship doesn't have to be this big Elon Musk moment. You know what I mean? Like it can really start with just noticing something and saying, hey, I can solve that problem and doing it on the side. You still got a W-2, still go to work, but 9 to 5 and then 6 to 10, you're working on the side hustle, type of thing. So I love that part of your journey because I think that is probably more akin to what most people's entrepreneurship journey and how it starts, Not a lot of people just jump head first into entrepreneurship. A lot of people start like how you started.
Yeah, for sure. And that was actually like, so that also gave me the opportunity to build some rapport with the bank. Now the next time when I went to them, I had paid off a business loan. We had something that was successful. So it was a lot easier later on when we went to start our second business. And so I was working at a home for children, and we were working with like abused and neglected kids. And so we had our first daughter, and as she became closer to mobile and verbal, so she was getting closer to 2 years old. We were like, this is no longer a safe environment for her. When she's first with us, it's fine. But as she starts to run these, there was just a lot of issues that we were dealing with in this community. And so, so we needed a job, basically. Like, I'm like, do I go full time into the hood cleaning? Like, what am I going to do? Like, I took 3 weeks and I just took it apart and just kind of like vision quested, like, God, what is my future hold? How am I going to do this? And I had a journal of like, once I had that idea, like, oh, I can be a business. I started like coming up with all kinds of business ideas. The wheels just started turning. So I had like a journal of ideas, and I was looking around like, what is in our community? What could there be? And one of them was a drive-through coffee and donut shop. And our town did not have either. We didn't have drive-through coffee. We didn't have donuts. And so we had. So I was thinking about this, and I actually had this dream. I don't know if I shared this part with y'all or not before, but I had this dream in the night while I was like trying to figure out what to do. And this guy walked up to me, starts jamming me in the chest of my dream. And he says, 3 week, no, well, it's 3 months from now, an unexpected door will open in your life. And I wrote it down and I was like, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Cause if I wasn't expecting a door to open in my life and now it's unexpected, it just didn't make sense to me. But I wrote it down. Well, 3 months to the day was my daughter's second birthday. She was the whole issue that we were going through with like what we're going to do. So we're driving out to this pizza place in Roan Mountain, Tennessee, which was like a town over from us. And we get there and it's a wood fire pizza oven place. It's on her birthday. We're celebrating her birthday. And the guy was selling this donut equipment. And so I was like, man, I got an idea for a donut business. And I start talking to him. He says, I'll sell you my equipment and I'll teach you everything you need to know. And I was like, man, I don't know. I don't have a lease for a building. I don't have a loan for a business. I don't know. And then he pulls out this book. It was Chefs of California, and it had 3 full pages about him. And he had won every gold medal in the Harvest Bowl Festival in Sonoma County and out in California. And he had a restaurant that had served, a bakery that served 80 restaurants. He was like this celebrated chef, and he had retired to his little town in the mountains and had turned this wood fire oven, like just kept on making breads. And he's like, I got this old donut equipment. I'll teach you what you need to know. And I was like, man. And my wife was like, Josiah, I don't see any unexpected doors opening. We're out here in Tennessee, and donuts is totally unexpected. Let's do this. So I bought the equipment from him that day, and we set on this journey. We left our job, and we bought this equipment, and we set up the donut and coffee shop, drive-through coffee shop. And so that was the moment where we transitioned fully, like left working for anybody else, just dove in full steam. It was really scary because we had a mortgage, I had a kid. And so I had the hood cleaning business on the side still, but donuts is like 3 a.m. So I worked my tail off that next year. I mean, I worked my tail off, but that was the start. So now I'm in business. I got donuts, I got coffee, I got a hood cleaning business, and it's like, let's make this work.
Nice, nice, nice. So there was a moment of realization where it's like, I got to go all in with this thing, type
Oh
of
yeah.
thing. Yeah, and I love the fact, if you could talk about this for a second, because one thing that you said, I think all entrepreneurs experience is the scariness. Like when you have to make a big jump or a big decision, when it comes to entrepreneurship, it is scary. And I mean, we got some young people on this line who may not be dealing with the wife and kids, mortgage, that type of thing, but some people do. And so if you think about the process that you probably had to go through mentally, and this is what this community is all about, empowering one another, talking to somebody who had to go through that, because somebody might be going through that now. Walk us through what that mindset was. I got a kid at home, I got a wife at home, I got a mortgage, I got a hood cleaning business, I got a W-2 job, and now I got a donut opportunity, and like, what is that like mentally when you're really trying to cross that chasm into being a full-time entrepreneur?
I mean, it was, I mean, I think one thing to realize is that like I was very aware that we might fail. That like it
Mm.
wasn't like I've got this amount of money that's going to come in. Can we make a budget work? Can we pay our mortgage? Like, which is how it is when you got a job. In this case, it's like we're going to open the doors, and like we got a bunch of bills we've never had before, and we don't know what's about to happen. And so that was so me and my wife sat down, and we had this conversation. We said, are we going to both be okay if this fails? Like if we have to like lose our house and move off the mountain down to a city and just kind of restart our life, are we going to be okay if that happens? Because it's a real possibility. It's like one of the things that might happen. And so we decided that it was worth it, that it was the right path for us, and we were good with that possibility. So that was part of it. And I think that the other side of it is also there's also that like it's all on you all of a sudden. So there was just this difference of like even though we had this idea of like we can fail, I worked round the clock to not fail. I mean, we slept there. literally me and my wife and my 2-year-old slept in the back of the donut place. I would go clean, when we didn't make enough money during the day because we first opened. I would go clean a hood at night to get some extra cash, sleep in the parking lot, I mean, it was just like kind of a little too, it was too much actually in a way,
Yeah.
but it's what it took. Actually, it was really funny. So we opened in spring of 2012, and then got through the summer. We were barely making it by at first. And I was just like, when the students come back in town, because we live in a university town, like when the students come back, this is gonna work. And then the students all came back and we got slower. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I took my wife to dinner, spent a bunch of money on dinner. I said, this might be the last time. And then we go out for a nice dinner. Like, this is not working. And it was right after that, it started to upturn. And I learned later that, like, I mean, the students didn't know we were there. You know, they were all checking in. They hadn't even gone out in the town yet. If they were going out, they were going to some place they remembered. They weren't checking out some new thing they hadn't heard of yet. So it just took some time to get found. But in the moment, I thought, man, this is not going to work.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
funny.
yeah. No, and just to catch everybody up on, and I know you will too. I went to that same donut shop when I was in Boone, and I couldn't barely get into the parking lot because the line was all the way out into the street. So things
Stays
have
popping now.
changed a
Yeah, we're
bit.
bumping.
How many times did you go to the donut
Yeah,
shop?
exactly. And the donuts are addictive. You know what I mean? So they got an espresso donut. They got a chocolate donut that has a shot of espresso in the chocolate. And listen, I'll let them tell that part of it, but it is really addictive. I don't know if you sprinkled anything else in that espresso donut to make me come back. Just
A
like
secret.
yeah, secret. Right. Yeah. So take us to the good part. All right. So you grinded, you worked your face off, for a whole year to get this thing up and running. Now you've got a little bit of momentum. You got a little bit of what we like to call product market fit. You know what I mean? And you're starting to really think about scaling this business. There was a point, I think, where you had to go all in on the donuts now, just like you had to go all in a couple of years prior where you had to get rid of the hood business. You sold that. Like there was a transaction there where you had to kind of go all in again. So you went all
Yeah.
in one time and then you had to go all in again.
Yeah. Yeah. So we kind of came to this flashpoint where we had this opportunity to buy the building, and we ended up acquiring the real estate, and I sold my hood cleaning business, and then I bought a online business for selling. So we added a roasting company as well. So we started roasting our own beans. We got the university as a client. So now we had like a wholesale roasting company where we had all these coffee we were getting straight from the importers, all this green coffee. And when I sold the hood cleaning business, and then I bought a company that sold green coffee to home roasters and home roasting equipment and taught people how to roast their own. And it had like a sort of national client base, and it was just a much better fit. So instead of like going out at night to try to make some extra cash, now we had something that was like using the same product that we could streamline. It actually helped boost our business because we could get more variety of nice, great coffees in the shop for the customers in Boone. So it just there was a lot of synergy that happened. And that's kind of when the business took off. We at the same time, we also expanded the building and put this front deck, like this timber frame that kind of gave, so people started finding us from the front. And it was about that period was about 3 years in, 2-3 years in. It was like everything just started to really work and click. And ever since then, I mean, it's basically been successful ever since then. I mean, there's been, Starbucks came to town, Krispy Kreme came, Krispy Kreme went, another drive-through. Like there's been competition that's come, but we've weathered all that fine and are still growing. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you talk about vertically integrating, like, hey, the coffee roaster fits right in with the business model that you were building there in the town. And I think there's something to be said about understanding your market. It sounds like it took you 3 years to figure that out. But as an entrepreneur, I like something that you said earlier, which is that, we had to get to the point where we understood that failure was a possibility, and I think you can correct me if I'm wrong. Is that something that you took into everything else that you did, like as you're making these big decisions? So you got to make a jump here, and then I know you went into you're a chocolatier. We'll go into that in a second. But it sounds like that's a thought process, and I know I use that every day. Like failure is something that you have to be able to manage. Managing failure, changing your relationship with failure, like that's something that you have to do as an entrepreneur. So is that like a mindset for you now?
Absolutely. So it was at our seventh year anniversary. Now the business had been going pretty well, and I kind of stopped. I just took stock. I was like, wow, I was going one direction in life. All this happened. Now I'm in business. It's working. It's successful. We built our home. I'm happy. Like, and I kind of just thought, what am I doing with my life? Like, that was all a huge, crazy rush of 7, 8 years. I'm established. Do I want to do anything else? Like, do I love business? And I just took some time and really just kind of sought and thought, like, what do I want to do? And I developed a philosophy. What made this decision really that I wanted to be in business and I wanted it to be meaningful, and that was what I was going to do. And I just wanted to make sure I really added purpose and celebrated purpose in my business. And hold on, hey sweetheart, go on, darling. What you need? Yeah, you can watch one more show. Yeah, I'm sorry. My wife's in New York right now, so
I love it.
I thought that I was worried that I had. Their movie just finished. But yeah, so I really just made this decision that I was not going to go back to school. I wasn't going to take a different direction, that I loved business and I really wanted purpose to be part of it. So we added this phrase, conquer your mountain, to our business. And that's our catchphrase now. And I wanted to help my employees, my customers succeed at the things that was on their heart, their mind, their purposes. I wanted to support other people. And that was how I wanted to basically go for it. And so when that happened, I defined wisdom as my primary bottom line. So like, I want profit to be strong, but it's like, if I'm going into a decision, I don't only want to make money. I also want it to be meaningful. I want to grow as a person, and I want to help the people around me grow as people. And that was this core decision that I made. That's why I wanted to be in business, was for the relationships and the way that I could might help launch others, the way that I had discovered how much being launched meant to me. And so that's kind of what we did, was Conquer Mountain. And so ever since then, that's the way I have, when I looked at expanding again. So I sold the online company, and then made this decision to go into, we built this beautiful, like 6,000 square foot downtown business with a wine bar and chocolate. And we added a coffee bar to that as well. And we roast our own cacao. So it's similar to the coffee roasting. We buy it from the farms, we roast it, we make these beautiful chocolates, and we have this wine bar and all this wine. And when I was trying to decide, do I want to go back into business? Now it's like, this was in 2020, and I was on the fence. I had this open door, this opportunity to go and do this downtown. I'm like, man, I can go play golf when I want. Like, life's pretty good. Like, do I want to do this to myself again? And I was sitting with my friend on my back porch, just having a beer. And he says to me, he goes, Josiah, like, you've told me a lot about what you want to do. And he goes, if you don't do this, how else are you going to grow? And he goes, I don't just mean financially. He goes, where do you think you're going to grow if you don't do something like this? And I was like, that, man, in that moment, I didn't have a business plan I had written. It was just intuition. I'm like, I'm absolutely doing this project again. He's 100% right. And so we went for it, and we did this big old project. That's where I met you guys, was there. And we're actually expanding that right now. We're in the middle of adding 2,000 square foot. We're adding a bookstore and a tea, a tea section, and we're adding a retail store for King Street, and it's going to be like, it's 8,000 square foot space. So anyway, yeah, that's kind of.
So that's, to me, that's probably, I wonder, and this is something only you can answer, but I'd be curious about this. Do you think the decision, the first decision, with mortgage due, with a young kid, a new wife, like, the first decision to go all in was harder than all right, I'm established, I can go play golf whenever I want, I've made it, I'm quote unquote successful, now I'm about to go all in again? Like, which one of those was harder? Because it seems like you would think that, I'm successful and going, but that's probably a hard decision too.
They were both, I mean, they're different. The first one was scarier. I mean, like, the amount of stress around, like, can I make ends meet for my family? Like, there was way more stress and pressure, just because there's financial pressure. I mean, just trying to make it is that's hard. I was bootstrapping it. And so that was pressure, but that would have happened even if I was sort of in that space regardless.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a great job opportunity in Boone. I didn't like my job, or I didn't feel like it was a safe job for my kids or my daughter. And so jumping all in actually wasn't a very hard decision.
Hmm.
It was harder to live through. It was harder to deal with the stress. Like more pressure was on me, but the
Yeah.
decision was easier because all that pressure like was forcing me to go for it.
Right,
You
right,
know,
right.
whereas like in 2020 when we decided to go for it again, there wasn't the pressure. It was sort of self-imposed, and so it
Gotcha.
was like, okay, are we going to do all this risk again? And so that was actually probably a harder decision because it was sort of like, and there was a little bit like my wife and I, you know, that we had some, I guess, I don't know what the word is, wounds maybe or something. We had some memories of like, man, that was hard, like some
Yeah,
trauma, right? It was
yeah,
like, that was hard.
yeah,
And so it kind of, it's like, are we going to, when all of a sudden we're working like crazy again, it's like, man, it kind of brought up some of that
yeah,
10 years ago
yeah,
stuff. So I think they're just different. They're different, but it was actually, I think in some ways a more challenging decision to do it from a place of success because I had more to lose,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. I didn't even think about that. The nothing to lose, sort of, you got to do it anyway. Like,
Got to do it
back up
anyway.
against the wall, I'm gonna do it. That's a
Yeah.
much different energy than I got a bunch to lose here. I don't have to do this, and
Yeah.
everything. Let me ask you a question, just real quick. This is kind of a little bit off topic. How's the wife? Has she been supportive throughout this whole process, or did you all ever disagree on any of the business moves that you all made?
She's amazing. I mean, she's as
Man,
much a
remember,
founder as
Josiah,
me.
we are recording this, so you got to be
Yeah. That's good to know. But no, she's as much a founder as me. I mean, she founded that business with me. She was in there at 3 a.m. with me, sleeping there with me, birthing the business. Um, we had two more kids along the way, and so she, I kind of carried it through for that stage. But then again, as we're building this new business, she did all the interior design. She's been very involved in all the businesses, and I mean, I love, one of the joys for me is working with her. We make a great team, which is not to say that we don't have some conflict around, work-life balance and figuring out like, I'm kind of like always ready to work. Like I just want to be productive all the time. And like, so she helps me like pull it back and take a good vacation and like kind of
yeah, yeah,
enjoy.
yeah,
So,
definitely.
we balance each other out, but yeah.
Got it, got it, got it. All right, guys, I got a couple more questions for you. But guys, if you have questions, this is the time. Throw them in the chat, or you can throw your hand emoji up, so we can start getting some questions in that you might have for Josiah, in his journey. I want you to talk about the chocolate, man. Like, when you're like a real life Willy Wonka, man. Like when I came to your shop, like you got like he's a chocolate. So if you guys don't know, I think this is the word. He's a chocolatier. Like they roast their own chocolates and they import. They got, I think you said your partner went and studied in Belgium or something, and like they've taken chocolate to another level. I didn't even know that this level was on when it came to chocolate. Literally Willy Wonka style. So tell us about the chocolate, man, and kind of what that vision was and how that came to be. And if you guys got questions, start to throw them in the chat or throw your hands up.
So, one of the bakers, one of the donut makers, when he was in college, got a great Wonka name. His last name's Jolly. He's just fantastic. He was just such a hard worker, always cheerful, just positive guy. Busted out with me through this when he was in college, and then he leaves and he graduates and he says, "Man, one day I wanna do a business with you. I love to work with you. I want to do a business with you." And so I like was working with him. And I was like, let's open another one of my donut and coffee shops. Let's open it in Greenville, South Carolina. I found a location. I was like, why don't you move there? We'll crush it. I knew we'd crush it. And then he and his wife got pregnant with their second kid. And he said, I can't make this move to Greenville. We need to go be closer to her family, his family. And so he moved to a town that was a lot smaller. So I was like, I don't feel good about doing it. Just didn't have the same market. So I was like, so we had this idea. We had almost done a business together, and then we didn't. And so then it's 2020, and he was doing some electrical work to provide or whatever. It was he had got electrical stuff done, and I called him. I said, "Hey, we're closed inside in our business. Can you come up and help me with some electrical? We're going to move some lights around. We're remodeling. We're just going to kind of try to dial it in a little bit while customers aren't in here." So he's in there changing the lights, and I said, "Hey, Jesh," I said, "if I send you to chocolate school, will you do a chocolate business with me? And he was like, let's go. And so we sent him to chocolate school. We got all this Belgian equipment, set it all up. And that was the start. So me and him started doing chocolates together. And then we just kind of built the business around that. And yeah, we get the So I had the idea because I was in coffee roasting. So I'd be reading. I'm always, trying to learn about the things I'm into. So I was learning about coffee roasting, and I was noticing that the cacao regions were really similar, and that there was similarities in the process. So I just kind of thought, wow, I can learn this. I already have this skill. I can add on to that and expand. So I started calling. This was probably 2018 or 2017. I was calling different chocolate roasters and asking them how they did it, and had a sense of it. So by the time I asked him that question, I had already kind of developed in my head, hey, this is an opportunity. And I just thought it would be good downtown. I just thought chocolate would be good downtown. But we take it from the raw cacao, we roast it, we crack it, we winnow it, we run it through these stone grinders for 24 to 48 hours where it grinds it down. And that's called melanging it. And then now we have this chocolate liqueur, and we take that and that's kind of like what most people think of as chocolate. So we go through this entire process of chocolate making. We make chocolate, and then we take the chocolate and we chocolatier it and turn it into beautiful confections, bonbons, all kinds of things. So
yeah. And listen, I had the bonbons, man. Listen, the bonbons are amazing, man. Like that chocolate is some freak. Jump in.
I have two questions. So, first of all, the chocolate is amazing. I had that too. And so my question is, what did you study back in the university when you were studying,
mm-hmm.
during like your undergrad or something like that? And when you actually take out money for like a business loan or something, do you take into consideration the amount that will go towards towards educating yourself? So for example, like for coffee roasting, you might have to go through some training or something. Do you take that into consideration, or does that go out of your pocket when you are trying to learn?
So I was my undergraduate. I did a double major not in business, one in history and one in philosophy and religion. And then I actually was working on my master's degree when we'd made this change into business. I was working on a master's of theology and church history, that was also, I finished that during that first 2 years. That was part of what made it so brutal, was I had to write that master's thesis. So I was actually planning on like getting a PhD and like teaching or doing some sort of like mission work or something. And business was not my plan. That was really like a discovery of, so I did not have training. So that actually, I did find out, to your second question, like how do you take into account what you need to learn? So when I would be making donuts in the morning, I'd go in at 3 a.m. and I start making donuts, and I would go through so many audiobooks. I mean, like I'd listen to like Investment Banking for Dummies twice, for example. Like I just knew I had this gap of knowledge, and I would go talk to bankers. So like, I mean, I had this idea to I was trying to make it, and I was trying to figure out we weren't making enough money at first. I'm like, how do I make it? So I would try to buy a $2.4 million business with no money. And so I went to, I went to this banker, and I just spent day after day saying, how am I going to do this? And I didn't tell him I didn't have an investor. So he was just treating, I'm a business owner and I tell him I've got an investor, which I kind of figured there's investors out there. I could have one, if I could make this deal smart, then there is investors for smart deals. So I just kind of took that for granted. And so, but I learned so much, and I actually applied the knowledge. I didn't buy that business, but I applied what I learned to acquire the building that we were in, the real estate. And so I essentially, even though I didn't have an education in business, I did have to take seriously that I needed to learn business. I needed to take time talking to people, talking to real estate agents, talking to investment people, learning how money worked. I mean, the amount of courses I took on money during that time, and how I paid for it all. I mean, it was at the beginning, it was just like bootstrapping. And when we did the expansion, we did that out of pocket. Like we didn't take a business loan and we don't have any debt on our new business. that we're doing or the expansion. So so when I sent him to business school, I just paid for it. We're paying for we did sommelier school for the wine. We've got a guy that's our wine guy in there now. We've got him in somm school. So we do take, it's important to learn what you're doing, but it's just kind of like creatively learning. It's not formal.
I have a follow-up question on that. I'm sorry. So when you were trying to get all this set up, did you did you learn a lot through people knowing like how many licenses you need, or like was it through talking to people, or was it just like searching it online? Because I know for a fact that you need a lot of licensing for like when you want to put up a coffee shop because it's food business.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
how
mean,
did you know all that?
I did it all. I just figured it all out, honestly. I mean, it was literally like, okay, I need a business. It needs to be an LLC or an S corp or something. I look it up, and there's these different kinds of businesses, and I'm like, okay, so I need to learn about what these are and which one best suits me. And then I need to call an accountant and say, hey, I'm doing a business. Do I need to be an LLC and S corp? Why? And like, how do I get there? And I just filed the paperwork and filed the articles of, incorporation, and just kind of, and then, and sometimes I'd get a bill from the government, and it was because I did something wrong, but that's the price of learning, it's like, we had this one moment where, when I bought the Captain's Coffee, all the way their taxes were, this is a little bit in the weeds and kind of boring, but it illustrates what happened. Like, all the taxes on the green coffee was food tax, 2%. And all the taxes that we were charging in our store was 0.0675%, because that's what whatever it is, the sales and use tax. So I was like, okay, wait, wow, I don't know. Nobody's taught me. So I don't know which one's right. So I called the IRS and I said, which one's right? And they told me, well, 2% sales taxes for coffee. So I'm like, great. My bills all say $2.50 tax included or whatever, on a drink. So I was like, does that mean y'all owe me money? And she was like, well, so I filled all these tons of paperwork, worked really hard to try to get this big refund on these taxes. And then I'm like, great, y'all owe me $5,000 or 10 grand. I don't remember what it was. And they were like, well, not so fast. We're auditing you. Like, I'm like, what? And so then they like audit my sales and use. It's brutal. Then they find like random stuff, like order a refrigerator that came from California that never had tax paid on it, because I don't know why. And I ended up having to pay them like whatever it was by the time it was all said and done. And they had told me the wrong thing. It was actually supposed to be 0.0675%. So, it was like, I just learned by getting it wrong. And I also learned in that moment, maybe not call the IRS, like learn from other people. They're not the ones that ask.
Oh, that's cool. That is cool. Thanks, Preet. Ariana. And Ariana, tell everybody your business. So Ariana is not in the same business, but a very tangential business to the one you're in, Josiah.
Yes, when I saw that you guys are doing a founders thing on food and like beverages, I sprinted to my laptop like so fast. Thank you so much for your time here. My name's Ariana. I was actually really excited learning more about your story. I had started a company called Tony's Kitchen and Bakery that specializes in vegan and allergy-friendly baked goods after my dad had passed away. And I did have a couple of questions for you. So my biggest question for you was, how did you find your niche? After that, I can just go ahead and give you all my questions because they all kind of tie into each other. So how did you find your niche? You mentioned living in a small town. I'm kind of similar to that. I live in Oxon Hill, Maryland. So how did you get your customers? Like, what were your main ways of getting customers and marketing yourself? And then after that, this one's kind of different, but how did you go about like acquiring these businesses that still ended up meeting your niche and your overall message?
What was that last question about? How, repeat that one?
Like when you were buying your businesses, like when you mentioned buying like the coffee and all of that, how'd you go about, like figuring out what type of businesses you wanted that still ended up fitting your niche?
Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, I think with coffee especially, location is so important. And so that location was really critical to have it be successful. And was a lot of the marketing. I had this naive idea when I started that quality and customer service and good price was the market. Like if I created value, that was enough. And to some extent that was true. Like, I mean, you've got to, I think, create value. I think there needs to be somewhere where you're the best at what you do in some way. Like, I think when I say what's your niche, it's like, what is something that I've asked myself this lots of times. What's something that I can do better than anybody else? In the hood cleaning, like I can do it better because I'm the only person in the high country, right? That's doing it. So I can show up in the winter in a way so people can't. With the donuts, it was a really special recipe. It was a 1930s recipe. I was like, we could do it better. And the drive-through was like, we weren't just going to open a coffee shop. We were going to do something that was like actually stood above other coffee shops in that way. And the same with the chocolate. Like I just knew I could do it really well because I had the person that I could invest in. I knew his workmanship and his craftsmanship, and that the product was something that was really had a lot of room to go. So I think like one question is like, how can you create value and actually bring something to the market that is head and shoulders above people when you look around, you know? But then I think I was naive in that like marketing mattered, you know, and I had to learn that like the hard way. Like some people aren't willing to necessarily see the value you're creating. You have to tell them. And sometimes they care more about the messaging than even if the value is true, unfortunately. So, I mean, that was more like that was my weakness, I guess, was marketing my message. And I sort of overcame that by having great location and by being a local and word of mouth. So it was really organic the way that I overcame that weakness. But I think that you do need a marketing. Like, I think now in hindsight, I'm like, okay, the message that you give, having a really tight story that people can get is really, really important. My story happened to be I'm local, you know, kind of came naturally. So it just kind of worked. That's how I did it. Does that answer the question?
You answered all of them. I have one more small question though. So like one issue that I have working in like with my food business is that like I get so excited and I have all of these, I want to offer all these different products. And I realize after a while, I'm offering so many different things that I'm not actually seeing a return in profit. So do you have any like tips or advice for that?
So I mean, in my shop, we have intentionally stayed simple. I mean, like when I especially starting out, like it's like, you know, I would need to try to be making more money. So the wheels are turning. So I'm like creating all kinds of things I could be things I could be doing inside my store. That was like always happening in my head. It's like, man, we could have sandwiches, we could have breakfast, like we could do this, we could do that, you know? And I really staying simple just helped us keep that quality and that messaging like really high. And it ends up being that like scaling it. So going from like X number of dollars a day and production to like up and be able to handle more, that's job in itself anyway. So like, I'm a big believer in simple. And when we took on 6,000 square feet, like I was trimming the menu back. Like we were like, all right, let's just do like charcuterie boards. Let's just do meat and cheese boards. Like let's let it be super simple. And we are adding some to that because we do have a big space and we got the room to add now. But my first thought was like, just simplify. That's been my method. And it's worked for me, you know, has been to really dial in to a core set. And then like, I think in food, you also got to be thinking about if you're adding another item or if you're building on the menu, it's like, well, where's the waste? Where's like, if you add another item and it means you've got to have a whole nother thing in your fridge, there's a risk there in terms, you know, or what are you throwing away? So like when you do add items, it's like really being careful with you probably know this, but like the foods that you have, you know, really thinking through that menu makes a big difference as well. And I, you know, I also think like being frugal, like being really thoughtful about the numbers ends up really mattering. Like it's not just like, okay, we're going to do this and it's as long as the product's good and we sell. It's like you got to really know what your cost is and have that cost low, you know. And so I mean, it's just, I guess it's kind of those fundamentals end up really, really mattering, and being simple helps. It's like hard for me to wrap my head around a big menu and keep up with what those numbers are anyway. So when you have a simpler menu, you're able to better know, like, okay, I've got this amount of money. I need to make this, and price it right and all that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so, so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ariana. That was an awesome question. Anybody else have any other questions? I wanted till somebody raised their hand, and we got a couple more minutes before we get out of here. One thing that you said, Josiah, I think is really, really, really a good point. Is just now when you were talking about oh man, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
The keeping it
Oh,
simple part.
no, not to keep it simple part, but how you didn't know business. Like a lot of founders have never gone and will never go to business school and never get an MBA and everything. And a lot of founders are just figuring it out on the fly. I mean, I don't know what is that adage? You're building the airplane while you're falling through the air. You're assembling the parachute while you're falling out the plane type of thing. I mean, many people know my story. So I'm a 4-time founder, and I'm working on 2 venture-backed tech startups now. But my first tech company was 25 years ago. I didn't know anything. I was a 19-year-old snot-nosed kid trying to start a tech company. I didn't know anything about business. And like after I finished failing, raising money, losing people's money, trying to build a team, trying to build a technology, and ultimately that business not making it to market, I felt like 3 years later that I had an MBA, you know what I'm saying? And everything like that. So, that process of self-development, if you could talk a little bit about how important that is, because whether you go get an MBA, whether you learn the business, whether you learn it in school or not, the stuff is the stuff. You got to learn the stuff, you know what I mean? And so talk a little bit about that process for you. And if you have any, like, I don't know, standout books or just anything that stood out for you to help you fill that knowledge gap.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely believe in. The way I view when things go wrong in the business, I take it personally. I believe that on some level that it's a reflection of my personal weaknesses when things are going wrong, or I haven't delegated correctly. It's not necessarily because I can't do everything, but it's like that there's a lesson for me to learn. So I'm always in relationship with my business as a path of like growth. So I'm always wanting to learn and grow as a person. And I think that business is so relational, especially my businesses. We host community. And so like relationships and the communication skills, the human skills are so foundational. And that's why the bank believes in me now. That's why I've had open doors that have happened, has been because of relationships and the ability to communicate with people that I've gotten to know. And so I think a book that I would recommend is, I think I recommended this last time. It's one of my favorite books, is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. It's a negotiation book. And man, I've read that thing like so many times. I've listened to his masterclass. I've watched a bunch of them on YouTube. When I'm going into a big negotiation or an investment deal, because I do investing as well, I'm involved in like some hotels in like Colorado and Texas and different things. And like whenever I'm doing those things, I'll prep by just like refreshing with Chris Voss. Like he's just got some really, really good stuff about like communication. And at the end of the day, when you're in business, you're in business with, there's a customer and there's a relationship there on some level. If you're building a team, there's relationships. If you're gonna scale, you can't do it alone. You're gonna have to delegate. You're gonna have to let go, and you're gonna have to lead. That's human skills. So there's like, to me, like there's when it's like developing skills, the business skills, the knowledge, but there's also the human and the personal growth. Like both to me are very, very. That's why I love being in business. Actually, is all the people I get to meet, all the different kinds of people, and all the ways that helps me grow. I think was that the question? Did I answer that?
Yeah, no, that was definitely the question. I mean, I just think that particular piece of the journey is one that I would say 98% of entrepreneurs are going to have to go through. There's always going to be a gap in the knowledge of what you know today and what it's going to actually take to bring this idea in your head to market. Because
Yeah.
many people, go ahead.
Well,
Joseph.
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no.
It kind of reminds me of this when you were talking. You kind of reminded me of this this moment when I was first. So I had my first intern from ASU. They sent somebody from the food and beverage department over to kind of work, and he was in business school, and he's like, "Man, show me your business plan." This was pretty early on, and I was like, "Okay." So I showed him like what I'd given to the bank, and he goes, "That's not a business plan." I said, "Well, it's the plan that I wrote for my business."
Right.
And he goes, "It's not a business plan." I said, "Well, it's the plan I gave to the bank." And he was like, still pushes back. I'm like, "Man, I brought this plan to the bank. They gave me money. I started a business. You're standing inside it. You're interning for me. How is it not a business plan?" And he says, "No, it's supposed to be like all these other things, like all the stuff that you learn about." I mean, I've taken some of those courses since then on like, how you write a business plan and what he meant by that. But at the end of the day, the plan was like it was me thinking through the business in a way that I thought I could execute it. And when I hit a question mark, I was finding a solution. So what that looked like was acquiring knowledge and then having the ability to communicate it to the people I needed to communicate it to get the funds to build the team. And then I think what I really boil it down to is like intuition. Like I'm a big believer in intuition. I think that like when you like that place where you got to be building your knowledge. You can't just go on like your emotion, gut, like whatever. You want to be building a framework so that your intuitions are sharper and sharper and sharper. To me, that's what we're doing when we're doing conversations like this, is we're sharpening our skills. But then you come in the moment and it's very relational, and you've got to like it kind of coalesces in this, like, for me, into this decision. I'm on my back porch. I'm like, yeah, this is the direction we're going. Mm-hmm. And when it's something like kind of on that level, for me, it's easy to get people to believe in it and to cast vision because it's coming from inside of me, instead of like, hey, I've broken down all the numbers and like, hey guys, we can, if we do, I mean, I know there's a place for all kinds of personalities, but that's me, is like to really boil it down into like just this gut level. Hey, I believe in this direction, and guys, we're going to make this a success. And then we're going to be adaptable. We're going to strategically execute this vision, and we're going to put adaptable competence, because stuff is going to go wrong. Even if we did have a chart, it's going to go wrong. And so we're just ready for it to go wrong. That's part of the plan.
Oh man, I love that. I love that. It's going to go wrong, but it's part of the plan. Did y'all hear that? It's going to go wrong, but it's part of the plan. And I love the whole idea of intuition. Like, as an entrepreneur, as somebody that's trying, you have to trust your gut, because sometimes the answer is not that apparent. And, I'm going through some similar type of things right now as we're opening up a couple of new markets in the country with one of my tech companies. And it's like, we have to literally decide whether we're going to divert major company resources into trying to do this thing that we're not quite sure about. But we think, and I'm the chief strategy officer, so it's really falls on me. I think, that this can be something, type of thing. And, my gut is telling me to go with it. So there's always going to be a level of gut instinct built into, of course, your business knowledge that you're building. Again, these types of conversations are always helpful to sharpen iron type of thing. But man, we really appreciate you, Josiah, spending time with us today. We try to make these things 60 minutes in and out the door. But we really, really, really appreciate your time today. Please, 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 everybody, show Josiah some love, show some love in the chat and everything like that. Is there any parting words you want to tell to the entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs and business owners on the line, Josiah, to get them motivated for tomorrow, Friday morning's coming up?
I mean, I think that it's worth it. The journey's so worth it. I mean, I am so grateful for what we've, and the hard things, the failures, those things. I mean, they're worth it. They're just worth it. If you've got a good purpose, then to me, it's just, it's on this side of it, this, on standing on a foundation that's prospering us. Like I'm just really grateful for the sacrifices we made. And so, yeah, that's my thought there. And I want to thank you guys for taking time to let me chat with y'all and share my thoughts. And thank y'all so much.
Man, this was incredible. All right, everybody, this is Startup Thursday. We got one more in our summer series. Once school gets back in September, we're going to beef them up. We're going to have some pitch competitions. We're going to be giving some money away in September once the school lets back in. We got a partner. We got a bunch of partnerships with a bunch of universities, Josiah. So we'll have to have you back, as we beef this thing up for the school year and everything. But we really want to thank you for your time today. This is an incredible founder with an incredible journey. If you all have questions, can we share your LinkedIn or how can people find you, Josiah?
Yeah, LinkedIn or you could my email or
Okay.
Instagram. I mean, whatever. I mean,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah, you got my
I
email.
want to
So
make sure.
you can share that. If anybody wants
Yeah.
to shoot me an email, got questions, I'm happy to help.
Absolutely. All right, we appreciate that. I know Ariana's going to want to get your information, so I'll make sure that I send that information to her as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right, guys, Startup Thursday. This is what we do. We make
Thanks,
sure that
everybody.
entrepreneurs got the resources they need to be successful. We'll see you in August, at the end of August. What's the date, Toy, on the August one?
I think it's the 29th. You said it, you asked me too fast. But also, guys, don't forget, we have a cool Instagram. It's at Startup Innovation Center. So please go there. I will be doing a random follower little prizey prize. We did a Grubhub last time. I might do another, I'm not a Grubhub, but Uber Eats. I might do a DoorDash or an Amazon, but put a follow and we're kind of doing a round robin sort of random picking little gifty gift there. And the date is August 29th.
August 29th is our next one. We'll send out information so everybody can be here. We got another great founder lined up for you all. Thanks again to Josiah for his time. Startup Innovation Center. Follow us on Instagram. And Toy promised that she's going to do a little giveaway. All right. We'll see you guys next month. Appreciate you all's time.
Everybody, have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, Freak.